All right, welcome back, everyone. We have the fabulous Kevin Cronister back again for our third part of our discussion. Kevin is filled with so much knowledge. I just want to talk to you all the time, Kevin, because you're just giving me so much information. It's so great. And today, this episode is especially for the dads or male figures in people's lives, and talking about why a strong father figure can help scare predators away, and getting deep into that and what Kevin has found from talking with pedophiles himself. Kevin Cronister is one of only about 100 to 200 officers for the ICAC task force, and he's a veteran investigator with them. And they are sorting through over 36 million child exploitation tips that get reported to ICMIC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. What he shares is going to open your eyes, guys, and empower you with steps to keep your kids safer. Welcome to the Keep Kids Safe podcast, a faith-fueled podcast for Christian parents who want to guard their kids from online and offline dangers. I'm your host, Sarah Panus, and I have over 20 years of experience as a content marketing expert, but I'm also a mom of two that is very interested in this topic of keeping kids safe. I started going down this path of trying to figure out what I can do to help keep my own kids safe and other kids. And here's what I realized. We are not powerless. There's hope. We don't have to dig our head in the sand, because informed adults are the most powerful protection children have. Because when we're smarter and more aware, we can help guide and protect them in more ways, give them the knowledge that they'll need to keep themselves safer. So on this show, each episode is meant to be bite-sized, not overwhelming, and everything follows my SAFE acronym, SAFE, to see the risk clearly, anchor in God's truth, focus on one simple action, to ultimately empower your family with habits and conversations that build lasting confidence. That's what SAFE stands for, as we work to keep all kids safe. Let's dive into today's episode. So let's root ourselves in the Bible, as we always do when we start this episode. Today's is from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, and it says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." Today's episode might surprise you. After interviewing over 100 pedophiles, ICAC investigator Kevin Cronister, who's on today, started asking some deeper psychological questions of these pedophiles. And his question was, why did you choose this victim? What was it about this kid? Why this age group? And again, the answer was the same. And it was that the child had no involved father figure. So interesting, right? So this episode is for every dad, grandpa, uncle, coach, father figure that's listening. Or if you're not that person, share it with all those guys, because you may not realize it, but your presence is a powerful line of defense. Kevin, let's talk about the heavy here. You sat face to face with over 100 pedophiles and asked them these deeper psychological questions about why they chose certain children. Tell us more about that. What do their answers reveal about that emotional and relational dynamic that predators are looking for in the kids that they target?
Sure. So I think it's worth pointing out that we live in a culture right now where quality is incredibly important and on everybody's lips and the front of everybody's minds. And so a lot of times what we see is an attempt at basically taking males and females, mothers and fathers, and saying that they're interchangeable, right? Equality means that dads can do the dishes and moms can go to work every day, which is true. But I think what we've done is we've forgotten about the specific things that make mothers and fathers from an emotional standpoint. Because I know I feel much different about my father than I feel about my mother, in different ways. And what I've noticed is that fathers inherently have a protective instinct more so than mothers, who have more of a nurturing instinct. And that protective instinct is subconsciously a huge deterrent to pedophiles. And sometimes it's not subconscious, sometimes it's very conscious. But what these guys are looking for is a child who has either a bad relationship with their father or no father at all. Because, to put it bluntly, these guys are very cowardly. They are looking for the easiest possible target. And the last thing that they want is a protective father figure putting their foot down and involving themselves in the picture. And they know that a protective father figure is more likely to look at something and jump to conclusions than anybody else in a child's life. Like, I'm a perfect example of this. I will see things, conversations, or something that my daughter says, "Oh, yeah, I started talking with so and so the other day at school." And I immediately jump to, right, like, who is he? Is he respectful? Does he treat you well? Has he
Yes.
ever said X, Y, and Z? Right. And that's a
Yep.
natural, I think that's more of a natural father instinct. Whereas my wife is more like, oh, is he nice? Is he
Right.
sweet? Right.
It's like you're
And
talking
so,
about my husband and I to a T for
yeah,
sure. Yep, totally.
yep. And they know that. These guys know that. And the weird thing, and I talked to you a little bit about this off mic, but you mentioned that I had gone undercover a little bit. And so sometimes I go undercover as a child. So I get to pretend to be like a 13-year-old girl, which is hilarious. My daughter finds that really funny. Or I will oftentimes go undercover as an adult myself and try to insert myself into these groups of pedophiles that get together on the internet and collaborate about the best way to groom kids. And it's really a gross subculture, but it exists. And the conversation among these guys, among other things, it's very much, hey, you have to find a kid who is emotionally unattached to their father, because if they're attached to their father, they're going to talk to him about things, about the way they feel, about how things made them feel. If something made them feel uncomfortable or made them feel afraid or nervous, they're going to talk to their dad about that. And the last thing you want as a pedophile is a father getting involved and potentially trying to track you down or getting a hold of law enforcement or whatever the case is. And so the number one criteria for these guys in my interviews and during my undercover work is that they will not move forward with a child once they find out that child has a positive relationship with their father.
So interesting. It makes sense as you're saying it, but I think it's really interesting that answer kept coming up again and again as you were
Yeah.
talking with these over 100 pedophiles. Okay, so knowing that, then let's get into the hope. This is where we can flip
Mhm.
the script because there's so much hope here. What would you say to dads listening who may not realize the impact that they have just by being present?
Your presence interrupts the grooming process at the very beginning, at step one. Because in the last episode, you and I talked about how step one was building trust and friendship, and the pedophile wants to become the trusted adult, right? Because they want to start to isolate your child away from you, and they want to be the fun mentor, trusted adult person in their life. And if a father figure has already assumed that role, there's nowhere for the pedophile to fit in. And so just your very presence breaks that process at step number one, because they will start to talk to your child and they'll realize that, man, they have a really good relationship with their dad, and I'm not going to be able to break that. And so they give up. So I would say that your ability to keep the lines of communication open with your child is, if somebody asked me what's the number one thing I would tell parents in general is the most important thing they could do, it's that moms need to encourage dads to be as emotionally available as possible, and dads need to do the work to become as emotionally available as possible. And I know that's difficult for dads, especially dads who maybe grew up with dads who came from a generation that was not super emotionally available for their kids. But we have to take it on ourselves to say, if we want to put a stop to this, we have to figure out a way that maybe that's counseling, maybe that's some courses, maybe that's discussion with your pastor. But how can I become more involved and more emotionally available for my children?
It's beautiful. And I think the key here, like all parenting, is it's not about perfection. In this case, it's about protection and presence. What are some small, kind of consistent ways that dads can show up that really make a difference, and or maybe something a dad could say this week to help their child feel protected and loved?
That's a really good question. The thing dads need to remember is that you mentioned it's not about perfection. The things that my children remember from when they were younger are things that I don't even remember having said or having done. So it's going to be the small things that you don't even think about that are most impactful to them. So it doesn't need to be some super grand gesture all the time. For my daughter, one of the best things that I can do is before she goes to bed at night, most of the time I try, before she goes to bed at night, I just go sit on her bed and I'm like, hey, is there anything you want to talk about? No, dad. Okay. I love you. Sleep well. Let's say our prayers. And 99% of the time, no, I don't have anything I want to talk about. Are you sure? Because I'm happy to chat with you. No, dad, I just want to go to sleep. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Eventually, there's going to be something, right? And she's going to know that at any minute, my dad's going to walk in and he's going to ask me if there's anything I want to talk about. And that's going to be my opportunity to discuss it.
Mm.
And so I think it's more about just showing that you're available and taking your children. My youngest son, his big thing is like he likes to go on dad son dates, is what he
Yeah.
calls them. 45 minutes at a coffee shop where I play a card game with him or something. And then I'm like, all right, dude, we got to go back because I got to mow the yard and I got X, Y, and Z to do. But just that little bit of time, it doesn't seem like much to us, right? I actually feel bad because I'm like, oh, dude, I'm sorry I only had 45 minutes to spend with you. And we don't see it as much, but to them, it means the world. And those little things are what has opened the door for some of the best conversations I've had with my kids about really controversial or important, impactful topics in their lives. So I guess long story short, I would just say that it doesn't need to be a groundbreaking event. It just needs to be something very small. And your goal is to fill the role of the understanding adult in their life so that nobody else can fill that role.
Got it. What about families that do not have an active father in
Mhm.
their home? What other trusted adults can help fill that gap to provide that sense of safety and connection?
Sure. I've seen uncles that have stepped up and taken that role, stepfathers or coaches, teachers, any protective male figure that is willing to stand in that threshold and say, hey, dude, I'm willing to talk with you if you need help, is
Mhm.
all that it takes. And there have been kids that have gone to coaches, have gone to counselors, have gone to friends' dads. I had a case where the father of a friend came to me and said, hey, he's kind of like a son to me, and I'm concerned about X, Y, and Z. And we were able to put a stop to a potential situation like this. So it's really any male who is brave enough or emotionally available enough to step into that threshold and protect.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you again for sharing these insights. We need strong men and women in this world, and we all play different roles. And so this is really
Mm-hmm.
insightful to hear from like a safety and protection perspective of what dads can do and these strong male figures can do in kids' lives and the importance of that. So thank you so much for not just chasing the darkness, but for helping families here that are listening bring that light and strength into their homes. We got dads, uncles, coaches. You guys, your presence matters so much. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to show up, listen, love, lead, be open, be that emotional resource, and letting that kid know that you are someone that they can open up to as they need, as Kevin was saying. Remember, you're not just raising your kids, you're helping protect them in ways that you might never see. And that's the beauty, right? We arm them to be safe in this world when they're not with us and when we're not
Yes.
around them, of course. So thank you so much for coming on. This was great, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the platform. The last 3 episodes have been great, and you're doing God's work by offering this platform for parents.
How can people connect with you if they want to know more about this, or what resources should they look at? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, visit www.kidsdigitalhealthhub.com. And on Kids Digital Health Hub, we've got lots of resources, lots of documents, videos, online courses for parents and teachers to educate themselves. And then we also have our own podcast called the Screen Guardians podcast, where every couple of weeks we have episodes that are covering more specific instances of cases that I've worked, and it gives parents an opportunity to see a more in-depth look at each of these different scams and some of the things that we talked about. So kidsdigitalhealthhub.com and the Screen Guardian podcast.